Hello and welcome to Inside 11Alive News Investigates. I'm Jennifer Bellamy. A Smyrna couple tells our station they thought they were getting their dream rental, but their experience has been anything but a dream. Right now, consumer investigative reporter Liza takes us inside their push to get help from one of Atlanta's biggest landlords and why they're not the only family having issues.
So, I mean, even when you're looking right off the bat, I mean, you can find there's pottery.
They hoped for a home.
It was beautiful when we saw it for the first time.
But that hope was shattered, Patrick Colson Price says, when the couple found shards of glass and debris in the yard.
The more I dug, the more that was revealed.
It raised safety concerns for the couple and their pups. They repeatedly asked property managers to clean it up. But before anything was done, Patrick says the property was sold and his lease transferred to Invitation Homes. That was more than a year ago, and the glass is still there.
Someone says they will call me back. No one calls. Emails will go unanswered. I've had to go up to the Invitation Homes offices twice to even get someone to answer a phone call. But, we feel helpless. We feel like, we're paying the rent. We're paying the money.
Other tenants reached out to 11Alive too with complaints. Invitation Homes operates more than 12,000 properties in Metro Atlanta. Data we obtained from the Federal Trade Commission shows more than 1,000 complaints were filed against Invitation Homes statewide in the past 3 years. And last fall, the FTC took action. Invitation Homes agreed to pay $48 million in a settlement after it was accused of exploitative fees, unfair evictions, and more.
I have quite a few cases right now that involved Invitation Homes.
Atlanta legal aid attorney Carly Eubanks is helping Gwinnett County clients struggling to get Invitation Homes to fix maintenance issues.
Clients often have issues with water leaking, whether they have a basement or a foundation. They'll have carpets ruined, flooring ruined, they'll have mold build up.
She says it can take Invitation Homes weeks or even months to respond. She believes its reliance on third-party contractors holds up cases. And she urges anyone facing issues to speak up.
I always say document.
Patrick says he's doing just that. His complaints led the city of Smyrna to issue Invitation Homes a citation.
Every single time we submit a work order, we take photos.
We asked Invitation Homes about the debris we saw at Patrick's yard. The company told 11Alive it's completed multiple cleanups to date and is working with local vendors and code enforcement to fully remove it. Patrick disputes that. Though on the same day we got the company's statement, an Invitation Homes rep and vendor showed up to clean up the yard. Patrick plans to move out when his lease ends, but wants the problem fixed before anyone else moves in.
They might not be able to put all the time and effort that I'm putting into it. I can do that, and I'm willing to do that just so somebody else doesn't have to go through the heartache of having an animal or a kid cut on a piece of glass and then having to fight with Invitation Homes to get that resolved.
Liza, 11Alive News investigates.
Certainly a frustrating situation, and Liza is joining us now. Liza, this is just one of thousands of situations. There are so many others like Patrick and his family. What can you tell us to give a little bit more context about what we're seeing here?
Well, let's first talk about the scope of Invitation Homes, Jennifer, and we dive into some of those numbers. Remember, we're talking about Invitation Homes being a company headquartered in Dallas, but make no mistake, their footprint goes far beyond Texas, right here into Georgia. And they've been buying up homes in Atlanta since 2012. That's nearly 15 years. According to SEC filings, Invitation Homes now owns more than 12,000 single-family homes in the Atlanta area. 95% of those are currently rented out. Average monthly rent is about $2,000. And we're talking about homes all over the metro, from Lawrenceville to Stone Mountain, Mableton, Roswell, you name it. People are renting from Invitation Homes, so their reach is huge here.
And I imagine that makes it even more difficult for people to find resources because people are so spread out there. Liza, you also mentioned the Federal Trade Commission has already been involved in this as well.
Exactly.
What did the settlement actually do to Invitation Homes, and are we seeing anything? What's going on with that?
Well, I think you saw in our story right there that our investigation really focused on the maintenance issues that Patrick was having and that we're hearing about from other people. But the FTC, they alleged some other issues like undisclosed junk fees, they say, homes not being inspected before move-in, and then tenants getting their security deposits unfairly withheld. Now, as part of that $48 million settlement, Invitation Homes had to start disclosing all fees clearly and make changes to how they handle tenants. Now, Carla, the legal aid attorney you saw in our piece right there, she says, yes, some of those fees are now listed online on their website, but the actual costs are still hard to pin down. Here she is again.
Invitation Homes does put on their website now that they have the smart home fee and the filter fee and the pet fee, but they don't put the exact amount on there. Find out up front how much these fees are and what you're going to get charged. Invitation Homes has been around long enough where you can go online and look at their reviews and see where, you know, the issues have been and ask questions. Ask questions before you sign a lease.
So this is just really frustrating, and there's a lot to kind of work through here, and so many people are renting because they feel like homes aren't affordable. So what kind of oversights are in place here to protect people who are renting?
Well, you bring up a lot of important issues here. We're talking about safety, we're talking about affordability, and there has been a lot of movement as of late. And last July, rewind a little bit, Georgia's Safe at Home Act, you may remember that legislation, it took effect. It requires rentals to be fit for human habitation. It limits security deposits to 2 months rent, and it also mandates 3 days notice before a landlord can start eviction processes for non-payment. Now, Carla told us companies are starting to take notice of that law. And then there's also a new bill, HB 399. It's currently sitting on Governor Kemp's desk, so we'll have to watch and wait and see if he signs it. It would require landlords to have in-state staff to handle complaints and communications. Now, Carla says if that goes through, it could seriously help with some of the maintenance issues that she sees pop up. But again, we should point out Invitation Homes does have a Dunwoody office, even though it's headquartered in Dallas, Texas. When I asked Invitation Homes if tenants could go to that office and get their complaints or their maintenance issues resolved if they can't get help through other means, they basically told me that yes, their staff is ready for people to do that, and that's an option for people. But at the same time, they say that residents also know the best way to communicate 24/7 on the status of any type of repairs is through the app or maintenance portal. And I have to say, Patrick went up to the office, as he said, several times. He had to get somebody to come out the office and set up an appointment from there. So, you know, there's a little bit of tug of war about how that goes. Now, there's also been a push on the federal and the state level, Jennifer, when we talk about oversight and we talk about the huge reach of some of these corporate landlords. Some of that proposals on the table would limit how many homes corporations can own, especially private equity firms. Now, Invitation Homes started out as one of those firms, though it's now publicly traded. It's important to know also if you're having issues, and again, we know the reach is huge, so many people renting in Atlanta. So if you're ever a tenant that has issues, you can go to the FTC, you can go to the BBB and file a complaint. You can also go to the Georgia Attorney's General Office. You want to have that on record. So if there is any type of widespread reporting or pattern, they can also follow up.
Yeah, and hopefully that gives you some information about who else is experiencing some of the same things. So if I'm a renter, what are my rights if my landlord isn't maintaining a property? Can I withhold rent? Can I break my lease? Can I take legal action? What can I do?
Well, I think some people would say, hey, I'm not going to pay you if where I'm living is not satisfactory. But before you go that route, Carla from Legal Aid, she is super clear. Keep paying your rent. If you stop, it can hurt your case down the line. Now, in Patrick's case, he went to code enforcement again in Smyrna and then to us after trying for months to get some of these repairs accomplished. And it's not just him. We actually spoke to a local teacher who reported a sinkhole at her rental with Invitation Homes. She was moved to a different property, but now she's dealing with a different property, also Invitation Homes, no working fridge, no HVAC cooling the house, and electrical issues. So we're trying to figure that out. I had another person today reach out. A tree fell on their home. They're still trying to get repairs. So advice again here from Carla, talk to a lawyer. They can help you send a demand letter where appropriate or even take further legal action if needed.
It's really frustrating. And you really hate to hear about people dealing with all of this. There's so much already going on in life. To have to deal with these issues on top of it is frustrating. What do we know about Patrick's property, and are there any updates on how he is dealing with it, and if there have been any resolutions here?
Well, he gives me daily updates. So he's going back and forth and telling me what's being done. Now, you saw a little bit of resolution there in our story where they came out and did some initial cleanup. He tells me this week there has been work to grade the area, which is basically removing the topsoil, and then there are plans to reseed the lawn. Now, Patrick, meanwhile, he's still finding bits of glass in the yard. And he also tells me he just got billed for a work order from last month, even though he says that work was never done. So the saga continues. The big takeaway here is read your lease very closely, document everything, know what you're responsible for and responsible paying for. And then, as Carla has said over and over, don't be afraid to speak up if something's wrong and get it on the record.
And this really applies for you, even if you're not dealing with invitation homes or maybe an apartment too. So this really is some good and important information for all of you who are out there renting. Liza, thank you so much. We want to remind you that if you have a story that you'd like to share with Liza or any of the members of our 11Alive News Investigates team, you can reach out by calling the number on your screen, 404-873-9111. You can also send an email to investigates@11alive.com. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again next time.